Good afternoon, welcome to the Facebook Live, which should have been yesterday but is now today, thanks to all the problems with Facebook yesterday. But we are here now and hopefully we will get some people watching. If you can hear little pitter-patter feet, I have company down by my feet. It is little George is with me today, so he's just down by my feet keeping me company. If you can hear him, he's right. If any cameras move, he's over the other side. Right, because I've got the iPad on, I need to just mute that. 1 second. I'm going to have to bring it down because I've not used this iPad before. Where's the volume? Volume. Let's see if that's done it. Let's have a look. There we go. Technology's great, isn't it? Yep, no volume. Excellent. Right, good afternoon. This is good. Oh, I'm all a fluster. Right, so apologies, this should have been yesterday, but I don't know if you saw, but there was lots of problems with Facebook yesterday. So when I tried to go live, it wasn't happening. So here we are today. So hopefully we can get going. Right, I don't know, I've got things all over the place. Right, so as requested by spookily 2 people asked for exactly the same thing, unrelated, which was to look at fusible film in relationship to some little wreaths. Good afternoon, Maureen. That I did as a workshop many years ago using fusible film. I think it was about 2014, 2015 that we did them. And they were based around a little bangle. And they were really, really lovely. And they've been sort of staple popular with everybody. But over the years, I'd forgotten how they were made. So I said I would show in this Facebook Live how we did it. So for that, we are going to look at our fusible film and some of the stamps that we did. Now, I couldn't find an old bangle, so I have just fashioned one out of a piece of wire here, which wasn't tangled yesterday. So I will show you how we made them. If you want to see the pictures of the ones from years ago, they are on Facebook. We shared them yesterday when we were supposed to be doing the live. So let's just have a little look at what fusible film is. Okay, so this is our fusible film. It comes in 2 metre lengths. In these bags are 2 metres, and there are lots of different colours on the website. You'll see all the colours on the website. We have got peacock, mint sparkle. You've got all the crystal ones. You've got crystal aurora, crystal moon, crystal sun, crystal pearl. Each of them have different colours as they play with the light. So this, just to give you an idea, this is raspberry sparkle, this is mint sparkle, and this is crystal aurora. But there's loads on the website, and we're going to use them in conjunction with one of my favourite stamps, the Wibble Tree. Then we have got our beautiful floral tile, so we don't have to be doing just Christmassy stuff. Funky fungus, and then this is the one that we actually used all those years ago, which is the 3-tree hill. Hoping not to have to say that too many times today, because it's a bit of a mouthful. So this is what we're going to be playing with this afternoon. Now, fusible film, I'm going to switch to, let's just do that. Fusible film, as you can see, is just beautifully shimmery and sparkly and lovely. And these are some of the colours we're going to be. I'm going to put the new packs away. George is fascinated by all the lights and stuff. So I think in here we've got, it's hard to see, but because you can just see, look at those colours. So you've got crystal, I think that's astral blue, there's the crystal. We have got a little bit of purple flash. This is peacock, and this is passionate pink. Okay, so we're going to be playing with those. Now, the important thing to remember with fusible film is that it requires a heat source. So we are going to be playing with an iron. So excuse me a minute, George, I need to plug my iron in. Can you mind out your way? Thank you very much. It's a very good assistant dog. So I've just popped the iron on. We are going to do some stuff with a heat gun as well. But you can just layer that together. You can encapsulate things within it. Elsbeth, you will just love this stuff. So let's just start very, very basically. Okay, so I've got a big pile of it. Just checking on the dog. Right, so I'm going to get a little bit of the Passionate Pink. So it does tear really easily in its sort of raw state, so to speak. And then I'm going to throw in, this light's really hard to tell. I think this is Mint Sparkle. Okay, just getting a few bits. So in its unfused state, you could see I could easily tear it. But once you start applying some heat to it, it will fuse together. So I've just got some baking parchment here. I'm just going to arrange these bits just randomly like that. Okay, fold over the baking parchment, take your iron and just apply some heat. Steam off on your iron if it's a steam iron you're using. Okay, and there you can see it has now become one piece that's a lot firmer. So you could die cut that up, you can stamp on top of it. You've just got this amazing, looks great in apertures and things like that, but you can just see that amazing colour. You can encapsulate things inside it as well. You can work on different surfaces. So I'm going to use a little bit of foil here and just come in again with just throwing in a couple of colours. Now the great thing with the foil is obviously being metal, it's going to apply different levels of heat, because the metal's going to heat up and cool down, which means that you're going to have a different variety of colours. Just ironing my foil. So you get amazing texture with it. But not just that, the reaction of the heat will change the colours. So if it's sticking to something, just let it cool down. It's the heat that's doing it. And by the way, it's so cold up here. I'm actually quite enjoying the fact that this foil is hot. So I don't know if you can see this, but you're getting a really fabulous rainbow effect where the heat is different. So the more it heats, the way the colour changes. So you get that real oil on water. Let me go to that camera and see if you can see those colours. It's like real rainbows coming through there. And the more you heat it, the more colours that will come through. And the great thing is you can take bits that are already fused, lay them on top of each other again and heat them, and they will fuse, continue to fuse. They're sort of, you know, it doesn't wear out as such, but what will happen is the colours will change more because you've heated it more. I mean, just look at that, isn't it? And then you could chop that up and use that in shaker cards. It's just amazing stuff. Okay, so let's have a look at it in terms of stamping, because this is where it's really sort of probably best known. So I need a 3-tree hill out of its... Actually, no, let's do the flower. We'll come to the 3-tree hill in a minute. All right, George. He's just watching me, wondering why I'm talking to myself, bless him. Okay. So I am just sticking this directly to my cutting mat. Don't need an acrylic block. Now, I am not a massive fan of StazOn ink pads, okay? For normal stamping, that's not what they're designed for. They are designed for working on non-porous surfaces, such as fusible film. You don't have to use ink if you don't want to, but I just think it gives an extra impact. But if you are going to use ink, StazOn is the one to go for. Okay, and then I'm just going to tear up, you could cut up, but I'm just going to tear up some of this fusible film. Okay, just tearing it up, getting some other colours in. Let's get a bit of peacock in there. So you can see at this point it's really sort of delicate. Let's throw in some pink as well. Okay, there we go. But I say, unlike ultra thick embossing that we did last week, you don't have to worry about, your stamp doesn't have to be inked. It doesn't have to have that release, because fusible film will only fuse to itself. So if you do accidentally forget to put your baking parchment down, it is not the end of the world. Let your iron cool down and then you will just be able to peel it away. So you can just see that design starting to come through. This is a technique that is only suitable for rubber stamps or photopolymer stamps, obviously because of the heat. Okay, you can already see that there's some magic gone on here. So peel that away and look, right, let me flick, because I think if I come to this side one, look at that. So what I love to do with this is then cut into this and decoupage these. They look amazing against black card. Okay, so that's using it. I mean, look at that. I mean, that is just, so it cuts beautifully. And the great thing is, it is from the textile industry. So if you want to stitch these onto clothing or into quilts, you can do. But look, so you can cut elements out. And unlike some materials, this stuff isn't really wasteful, because if I keep all these bits I cut off, I can fuse them together later into something new. Okay, so I'm just going to cut around there, and then I'm going to do a different colour on this, and then we can layer it, and then we'll come to, this is basically how we started doing our lovely Christmas decorations. But just, I mean, it's just delightful. But so we'll fuse all that up at the end. Okay, so stamp back in the middle. I am going to ink it up again. I'm not going to ink it up yet. I'm going to get some of my colour ready. So I didn't really use that bright pink much. I'm going to go just for the bright pink. Okay. And I'm not going to do the whole stamp. I'm going to concentrate on the middle of the flower here. Okay, and maybe some of that darker purple. Okay, there we go. Oh, stays on pads. Okay. I've lost my assistant. I don't think he's fallen asleep down there. He must have gone back to Uncle Paul. So I'm just layering it in just the bits I want, just so I'm not having to, so just layer. I'm going to go quite thick this time. Okay. Don't forget your baking parchment. If you haven't got baking parchment, copy a paper, but I like the fact with baking parchment you can see through. Now I am putting a little bit of pressure on here, but it is mainly the heat that is doing the work. Okay. But again, you can see how the colours have changed. And I've pressed, so I've shaped it a little bit more this time, because what will happen, the longer you sort of melt it, the more texture. Again, let me just show you on that side camera. You see that real texture. Shame you can't touch it, but because I did it for even longer, it's really became very malleable and sort of soaked into the stamp. So I'm just going to cut that element out. Okay. Now, because I've gone and created a lot of texture with this one, if I was to join these together by ironing them, you might find that you're going to lose some of that texture. Well, there's a couple of ways round it. One is just glue it, but two is obviously place it back on the stamp to reheat it. So just place it back on the stamp like that. Take your one you've cut out, place that down, and then I'm going to come in with a little bit of this one. Okay, so I'm sort of layering it together. But obviously there is a higher risk here that I'm going to pick up sort of a silhouette of the stamped image. So if you can clean your stamp in between, do that. Or, as I say, just glue it or iron it without it being on the stamp so that, you know, you've got, but you'll lose any indentations that you've created. So just iron in that. By the way, this is the only time my iron gets used, unless I'm ironing Paul's shirts. And I only iron them for a special occasion. Okay. Peel it off. And look at that. Let me put it against a bit of black or dark. Just look at that delight. And the colours really change. The colours intensify the more you heat this. Okay. So I'm going to trim off the excess. So we're going to leave that one for a minute to one side, and we'll do our lovely Christmas decoration. But you can just see how unusual these are. And again, if you put this into resin and stuff like that, but it's the heating that makes those colours change, because you can see on the back as well how the colours have changed. Okay, so pop that to one side. All these little bits, I'll save them because they're just beautiful. Right, let's bring in Three Tree Hill. Told you that was a hard one to say. Three Tree Hill. And there it is, stuck to some fusible film. Right, so first things I'm going to do is create a base layer. Okay, so again, I'm going to stick that right in the middle. And I'm just going to use a simple layer of one of our crystal ones. And just make sure. It's really hard under this light because the light's reflecting on it. That's astral. Actually, I'm going to use this. This is astral blue. I just think that's going to be quite a nice background. Okay. So, come in. So this time I am only fusing it. I have not added any ink. So I'm just, what did I say? So just let it cool and it'll peel off. How hot should the iron be? Medium heat. The hotter the iron goes, the more your colours will change. So if you want to have an element of control, use it on medium heat. So do as I say, not as I do. Mine's on maximum, as always. I don't think I know how to adjust my iron. Right, so this time there is just the impression. Okay, so again, because the stamp will heat at a different rate to there being no stamp, you will get a change in colour and you will get a texture. But I haven't added any ink to that because I don't want that to be too distracting. Okay. So now I want to build up some elements. So I've got all the different trees and things like that and the hills. So the hills, let's come in with, we'll come in with some of this pink. Okay. I've got mint sparkle there. I could be naughty and open a new one. So I am going to ink up my hills this time because I want a little bit more definition. Oh, I'm going to open up mint sparkle. That's naughty, I know. No, actually I should do peacock. There's my peacock. Honestly, it's so hard to tell the colours in this light. Peacock's on the floor, that's why. There we go. So, again, just tear it up into pieces. By tearing it up into pieces rather than just doing one single piece, obviously you're going to add different layers and different thicknesses, so that will in itself create different colours, different texture. Again, I'm going to just heat this for a little bit longer so I can see the design has appeared through the parchment, but I'm just going to heat it a little bit more just so it starts to really sink into the stamp. So there we go, you've got that lovely colour. So again, I'm going to cut this, and this is going to be layered onto my background. So basically I'm creating different sections in the fusible film to decoupage to all intents and purposes. Okay, so that's going to go onto our hills, and that's why by creating the impression on the first layer just makes life a little bit easier. Now, where's that bit I did earlier? I really like this because I've already got loads of colour going on here. So let's up our trees to have this. I am going to do the trees in slightly different colours as well, but let's just get a couple of trees done. So this has already been fused twice. I think that side's got the most interesting colour. Parchment across. Just move all those little bits out of the way. So it doesn't ruin your iron, don't ever worry. You just need to let your iron cool down and peel off. Right, so this has been melted a few times. So I'm just going to give it a little bit more welly. But you can see the trees are showing through. So you know something is going on. Again, look at the colours you're getting coming. Wow. Let me just, because I think from the side, yeah, look at those colours. Aren't they amazing? It's just fabulous. I mean, I don't know any other material that you can get such fabulous colours from. And then I'm just going to cut out the trees. Now, in terms of the curly whirly bits across the top, obviously you can, if you're really careful, cut round them, but you can also have artistic license on that because you have made that impression on your back panel. So, you know, they're not going to be lost. It's not like you're losing that design element. And then I think I want to have another colour for the forefront tree, just because I can. Not going to lie, that's the main reason. So how are we doing with our elements? Yeah, I know the light's shining on it, so it's a bit harder. Now this one, because I've got such amazing colours there, and I'm really happy with the colours there, I am not going to iron this one together because you've seen how the colours can change as you are melting these more and more times. And I don't want to lose those amazing colours that I've got. And they may well change, because if you think this was all pinks, but there's this green come through here, there's a gold in here, you know, and they're colours that I really want to use. So I need to do another colour for the front tree. And again, if you wanted to, you could cut out the trunks, if you know, but I'm going to simplify this a little bit. So I'm just going to do that front tree. Let's go with the beautiful eastern sky dark one here. So I'm just going to do 2 layers, parchment across. So I picked up some then. Iron, iron, iron. Really just concentrating on that heat there. Warming it up. Not using this to warm my hands at all. It's not as cold today as it has been, but because it's damp, it just feels colder. But none of the boys were like, oh, no, don't worry, we won't go out in a walk. No, they still want to go out in a walk. But again, so you saw me put down just that purpley colour, but look at these colours here. It is honestly, I mean, I know it's nice doing this so you can see it on camera, but it does not beat seeing it in the flesh, so to speak. Okay. So then that, so I'm going to come in, I'm going to put that over there. So by layering it on top, see, it's changing the colour anyway. And then I've just made my own bangle, so to speak, because, say, when we did these many years ago, we did them on, you know, the thin bangles you used to get. I think it was sort of an 80s, 90s thing. And I was gifted loads of them, and they were absolutely perfect for this sort of project. So I'm going to come in with some glue. You want a dry as clear glue, and I think we even added glitter as well because they're not sparkly enough. You can go back. You don't have to always use stays on. It's just stays on. Obviously is designed for this. It is designed for non-porous. Anything else like your versifying clairs and stuff, you might get a slight element of smudging, that's the word I'm looking for. My glue is not liking the cold. Let me try the other one. Honestly, glue does not like cold. It really doesn't. I mean, there's a bit on there. I mean, I could completely and utterly cheat and take the lid right off. Break the golden rule. Right. There we go. So I say I'm gluing these because I don't want to alter the colours anymore. And I'm using a glue. Oh, George was here. He was asleep and I've just woken him up by coughing. Sorry, George. Don't know if you can hear his little feet. Hello, mate. He probably thinks, that strange woman is talking to herself. I mean, just... It's actually, the camera's struggling to focus on there, but look at those. Right, so I'm now going to apply some glue around my bangle. Okay, I faked this bangle, by the way. It's just out of wire. And then I'm going to position it on the back of my fusible film. Okay. Then obviously I'm going to wait for the glue to dry before I cut it out. No, I'm not. Of course I'm not. That would be sensible. Now what I can't do is I can't use my heat gun to speed up the gluing process, the drying process, because obviously fusible film, being a heat reactive material, would have its own ideas. So I'm just doing that. Okay, flick that over. You can see all those beautiful colours. Tell you what I should do. I don't know if this is going to work. Shine the light through that so you can see those beautiful colours. Isn't it lovely? Okay, phone out the way. Turn off the torch. How many times do you do that? Right, so just the more you let the glue dry, the more sturdy that will become. And then obviously you can then embellish these up with a little bit of beading or something like that, which is what we did before. So I already found some fabulous beads that I knew would pass through my wire. So I'm just going to finish that off with a little beaded tail. Okay, so we're just going to thread some beads through there. Obviously at home you would wait for this. Oh, let's take that off for a second. And the great thing is when you use a wet glue is you can do things like that because we know the glue's not going to have dried in that time. So I can put it back on in a minute. Okay. Ignore the fact I'm using my good scissors for wire. So we're going to hang that onto there. and then I would add a loop at the top so that is ready to hang up. Look at that, the colours are just beautiful. So Samantha, Sue, that was specially for you because you were asking how we did them all those years ago, and that was how we did it. Okay, let's go back to the rest of our film. So what we've got on the table here is we've got loads of scraps. Okay, they're not scraps, they're just not used yet. So the nice thing you can do is you can just pile them all up. Okay, I'm not going to pile them all up because I'm going to keep some back. So all these little bits here, you can pile them up, throw them in like that. I'm going to keep that bit back, I think. Oh, maybe that bit. So, and if you want to chop them up smaller, you can do. Okay, you don't need any fresh. This is just with your old stuff, so to speak. Okay, throwing in any old scraps. Fold that over. Bring your iron, and you want to really, because that's quite thick in places, you want to really, really heat this. Really warm. Just evenly moving the pressure around. The colours are amazing, honestly. They are just, the more you heat it, the more amazing they become. And colours, and especially because what we've got here is we've got different thicknesses. You're getting a little hint of just look at this. All those amazing colours, and that's just from your scraps. So what I like to do with things like this is just chop them up, and my mat's nice and warm. It'll sink down in a minute. I do tend to do this on a glass cutting mat normally because that brings a heat up as well. Yeah, so these get chopped up to become a mat and layer, or if you've got a nice stamp or just something that you can put over that. A black die cut would look amazing over that. But another one I like to do is get a bit of wire. Okay, and I'm going to go with, I'll come back to that in a minute. So I've got to, now remember what I said, it will only fuse to itself. So if I put a piece of wire in there, if I want that piece of wire to stay within there, I need to make sure I sort of cover it, I sandwich it, I encapsulate it. Okay, that'll do. Fold that over, heat it. Now, because you've got that wire in there, think of it like sort of almost doing around the seam of something when you're ironing. So I'm just moving so that I'm getting really close into that wire and then over the top. Okay. So now we've got a piece of wire inside there, and then you can either make these into leaves. I'll show you a trick with leaves in a minute. Or I like doing feathers like this because they have that real peacock. Now because we've fused that, we can go almost up to the wire, cutting it in. I always try and think of another way of saying it, but there is no other way than feathering. Okay, but obviously at the moment it's all very flat, beautiful colours, but very, very flat because we've ironed it to fuse it and then we're cutting it, and it just looks a little bit too inorganic. So holding the wire, I'm just going to very carefully start to heat it. Keeping my heat gun far away so it's only slowly heating it. just to start to give it a little bit more movement. Because although we've been using the iron to do the fusible film, you can do it with a heat gun as well. But if you go too much, do you see those ends just start to curl? In terms of would you need a metal shim if you were die cutting it, it depends on what dies you're using and which die cutter. If you're using something like the original Big Sizzix, and you're, you know, I don't know, one of my favourites for cutting out of these was the Tim Holtz Tattered Leaves one, in which case, no, you didn't need to, because it would just cut through it. But if you were doing something a little bit more ornate, then yes, you possibly would. The other thing to bear in mind with your dies is the sort of the spellbinders, the tattered lace type ones. You can obviously iron on top of those and have that amazing impression from the die as well. So that's how you do a feather. So talking of leaves, and I used to do this and then die cut them with the Tim Holtz. It's one of my favourite Tim Holtz dies. Right, I'm going to come in with a skeleton leaf. Nope, not that one, because I've just broken that one. Oh no, it'll still work. Okay, so lay your skeleton leaf down. Come in with some fusible film. Now remember, this is not going to fuse to the leaf. It is only going to take an impression. Okay, and then we're going to iron. Okay, again, you can see that there's something going on here. So the leaf is not attached, but what is left behind, can you see that impression? Let me put a little bit black behind there. Look at that. And again, cut these out. If you've got any leaf dies, cut them out like this. They just look fabulous. Okay, but you can obviously cut it out with scissors. You can encapsulate like we did with the wire, but generally it is just using, it will only fuse to itself. But did you see when I heated all that lovely curling? So you can, let me just see if I have got what I want. I want that in a minute. But you can just use your heat gun with it. So obviously when you are using your heat gun with it, you're not applying any pressure, so it's not going to bond to itself, but what you can create is really interesting texture. In fact, let's go to that fun one we created with all our excess. So I've got those little bits, I can chase them around a little bit. Okay, get it to curl in, pull in on itself. And this time you're seeing how the colours change as you're doing it. So this is really nice for creating extra. I mean, you can wrap this as well, round things and create beads. What have I got? I've only got a pen. But you can see how it wrinkles, and that then plays with the light. Okay. If you have something like a bottle and you take some and wrap it around a couple of times, and again you could be messing about with your colours here, and you heat it with your heat tool. See how it's starting to suck in? Obviously this only really works if you're using glass or stone or something that you can really apply heat to. And it starts to suck in and you can see the colour changing. But the nice thing with this is it doesn't damage the item underneath. So if you want to just mix something up for maybe, you know, for Christmas, create something a little bit different. You know, it's not going to do any harm to what's underneath. But I just think if you then added, let me heat some more there. If you added some lights into this, how beautiful would that look? And again, you can add more layers to this. But there, look at the colours. So we could, if we wanted to. Now, obviously this is going to be a bit harder because we're not applying any pressure, but if we heat it and then press it down, it will start to bond. So you can build up layers of interesting colour just by using the film. And the great thing is, if you don't like it, because it's not fused to the bottle, you can just take it off and then fuse it into something else later. It's just really, really forgiving stuff. So we have stamped on it. We have created really interesting things that could be die cut up. We have created toppers. Let's do a little bit of encapsulation. Now, I don't know what I've got under here to encapsulate. Okay, we'll only have a little bit of patterned paper, I think, in here. Let's have a look. Oh, we got the bits from last week. Yes, that might be quite nice. You can also sandwich in embossing powder, and that will react as well. I'm just gonna, right, so I thought I'd got some book page up here, but I haven't. I've got some paper. Now obviously if I just put the paper down and then put these over the top, it's not going to fuse to it. Only fuses to itself. So I need to encapsulate it. So, in fact, I've just had a thought. Bear with me. Changed my mind. Right. A little bit of white. Here we go. Bit of torn white. That one, I think. Right. So, oh, that's the end of the roll. So, make that a little bit shorter. You all right, George? Yeah, I can't tip the camera down so that everybody can see you, mate. Sorry. But he is very cute. Let's go with this one. So, I've got to make sure that it is encapsulated. Okay, so that means I need something all the way round. Okay, now I want to create, let's think Northern Lights or something like that. Just can't get over how sparkly the screen is at the moment. Yeah, there is so many options with this stuff. It is, and the fact that you can, if you don't like it, you can sort of basically melt it down again and try something different. It's just so forgiving. Just going to add some more colours into here. Again, this is where you could really do with some nice die cuts. So get your little frosty trees and things like that. So I'm going to try and create a little bit of a diorama. Oh, that's reminded me of my Christmas tree I need to show you as well. Okay, so iron this. Now, what's fabulous with this, because you've got that paper in there, that is also going to change colours. That's going to create a difference in temperature. So you've got a fabulous wintry scene here. Now, if we wanted to, we could have done it, in fact, let's leave that one. We'll come back to that one in a minute. Let's do black, because then I'm thinking we could cut some black trees out. Okay, I'm going to use a bit I've already used, just to show you that you can. Okay. Yeah, let's do some little trees. Okay, I'm just tearing these, because I think that makes it look. So one more little tree. There we go. 1 minute, Georgie. Right, lay that over the top. So we've got some fabulous colours going on there. But I'm just thinking with the black, it's nice and stark against the colour. Fold that over. See, the other great thing is this piece of baking parchment will do forever and ever. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't ruin it. There we go. The embossing powder, you'd have to basically imagine making an envelope and putting the embossing powder in so it would melt within. I have got some embossing powder, so we will try it in a minute. Let me just get that out. Right, let's do this. And can you see that? So you've got that lovely sort of silhouette. And again, if you imagine light shining, let me just do this. So how lovely. That's really Northern Lights look to it. So again, you could put this round a lumiere or anything like that. Just beautiful. Right. So again, this one you could then cut out elements, you know, add in some more trees, pick some darker colours. I mean, I just did use your stamps and add those to it. Now, the only thing that probably wouldn't work, I'll give it a try, but obviously now we've got that paper there, the chances of this taking a good impression is going to be a little bit harder, but I will give it a go. Because I just thought the trees might look quite cute over here. We will add a little bit. But it's going to be a little bit harder because you've got that paper there. But only one way to find out. And then we'll try the embossing powder. Let's move that so we can see. So obviously the heat is now going to have to go through the paper as well. But I think it's working a bit. Oh, that's really cool, actually. Right, try not to sound too surprised. Look at that. So it's really set that off. And that you can, again, you can see how the colours have changed because we've created more heat within it. That's so you could have a lot of fun. You could stamp that, cut out the elements, put them inside, sandwich them, and then you've got that impact within it. So really cool that is. Right, embossing powder. I haven't done this for a long time. So I'm going to use a little bit on the base. Okay, and then I want a bigger piece to go over the top because I don't want any of the embossing powder getting out, and I'm only going to sprinkle a little bit in there. Am I going to do it on top of a stamp as well? Yep, might as well. In fact, let's just move that to one side for a second. And any embossing powder that's on your baking parchment, get that off as well. I'm going to go back to my I think this might work really nicely. Okay. So get your, then I'm not doing a huge amount of the embossing powder. And you've got to be aware that obviously embossing powder has a different melting point. So it might, you know, if your iron's not on very hot, you might find it will just be encapsulated in there as powder form. Why is the camera struggling to focus? I think it's just struggling with all the reflections. So let's move that out of the way. Okay, that's better. It's just, sorry, it's just struggling a little bit because it's also reflective. There you go, that's fine. So I'm just starting to heat this. So we've got that. We've got 2 layers of our fabulous film, and then we've got some embossing powder encapsulated in that as well. so I can see that the embossing powder has spread around. So it has melted a little bit. Let it cool a bit. If it appears to be stuck to your stamp, just let everything cool down. And then peel away. And we've got some really interesting colours going on in there. And then again, if we were to hold it up to the light, you would see that embossing powder just peeping through. And again, it's added more texture to it. It's totally changed the colours where the embossing powder is. Okay, so just time for one last little one I like to show. We're going to use a fairly long length, like this. That should be quite nice. Okay, I'm going to iron that nice and tightly. Plenty of pressure. Okay. So again, just because we've been using the paper a lot, there's wrinkles in it, so you're picking up that texture. Right, and I'm going to do 2 lengths of this. Right, so we start to, again, cut this into little feathers. And anybody that did the festive papercraft workshop will be guessing where I'm going with this. I'm going to make a little bough of a tree, so like one branch of a Christmas tree, and it's just extra special in this. So you can either put these into cotton reels and make Charlie Brown Christmas trees, or you can use them on your Christmas cards. Again, I'm just going to give it a very small bit of heat just to start giving a little bit more movement to those fronds. Okay, see, by wafting it about, I'm not letting it go too hot too quickly, and it's just giving it a little bit more shape. Okay, if I go too long for too much, it will just curl up too much. But you can see again the colours change as you're doing this. Right, then you're going to put a line of glue along this bit here. And again, you would let that set for, in fact, I can cheat a little bit here. Just give it a little bit of a skin on it. Just give it a quick, because the glue's cool, it will stop the fusible film underneath heating too quickly and changing the shape. But by doing that, it's just allowing me to have a little bit of a skin on it, so that when I start wrapping it in a second, it's already going to start grabbing, because this stuff, obviously being plasticky, is a little bit harder to wrap. We did these with paper. But the great thing with fusible film is you can also, when it's wrapped, heat it as well, and it will help grab it. But you can see we're just starting to wrap it round its, and it starts to make it like a little branch of a Christmas tree. So let's just, we might as well use the fusible nature in a second. Okay, just to get that to grab to your wire, you do that a little bit more, and then you've got a little branch to your Christmas tree that you can then hang a bauble off or anything like that. It's just, and again, you've got that fabulous sparkle. So there's a branch to a Christmas tree. So the only last thing I probably want to show you is how you can use this to make beads. I'm going to have to use my pen. So again, just get yourself some bits. Again, it could be where you're recycling bits. I'm going to go really quite thin with it. Mix your colours, whatever you fancy. And then just, don't do this after you've just done a Christmas tree and you've got really sticky fingers. Okay, just start wrapping it round. A wooden cocktail, barbecue skewer or a chopstick or something like that is easier, but I forgot to pick one up. I remembered everything else. So wrap it round and then sort of rest it on the ends. And this is a heat gun one. As it starts to warm, just start rotating your item round. Again, it's not going to stick to this item that you're wrapping it round because it only fuses to itself. Let it cool, then it slides off and you've got beads. And again, you can add more layers to it. Obviously, I've used a chunky pen, but you could go with something thinner and then you just get these amazing colours coming through. So that's really only, it's still only scratched the surface. Could you stamp with Wow embossing ink, then put the embossing powder on, then heat actually into the fusible film? One way to find out. Let's try. I haven't got an embossing ink. I can just use my VersaFine Clair. So I'm assuming you mean use your fusible film just like paper kind of thing, and use that. Right, I've got a block. I tell you what is going to be hard. Tell you where this might come undone is that the fusible film is quite staticky. So I suspect when I do this in a second, the embossing powder is going to stick to the film a bit much. That might be the only issue that's going to cause this to be. Okay, so that's it stamped. I had a blue embossing powder in here a second ago. Where's my blue embossing powder gone? It was here. There it is. So, yeah, it's sticking to the ink, so that's fine. It's not sticking elsewhere. So then you want me to heat that with a heat gun, just like as if it was paper. Yeah, your wish is my command. So it's going to be whether the issue. So now, were you thinking iron it or heat gun? Well, let's do both. So let's sandwich it with another layer and iron it and see what happens. Okay. This is what it's all about, asking questions. Move that back into the middle of the screen. Now I can smell the embossing powder, so that's good. I mean, bearing in mind these probably weren't the best colours. Oh yes, it's definitely melted in there. Don't know if you can see that. Let's do that. Can you see that? So it's melted in there and it's sort of spread a little bit. I kind of like that. Again, if I put black behind it. Yeah, that's interesting. So yes, that works. So, and now let's do it with the heat gun as well. Swap. So we know this bit works. That's good. Obviously not the best colour of ink, best colour of embossing powder to show up, but it's all I had here. Okay. But this is what these lives are all about, asking questions, experimenting, showing you a product. You know, it's really nice to have a dedicated hour just to one product. Okay, so Now, so I suppose the next question is, am I going to put another layer on top of this, or just heat it as it is? Let's go just heat it as it is. That's not the easiest thing to tip back. There we go. Right. Now I'm going to hold it with a pen just because it might want to flap about. Okay. So which is going to melt first? The embossing powder. Oh, the embossing powder's going. And you can see the heat. Oh, so it's wanting to sort of pull it. Oh, this is interesting. Bit of control needed. So if it starts to wrinkle up too much and you're not happy, just pull the heat gun away. And flatten that down a little bit more. So it's a bit like sort of almost dealing with shrink plastic, because you just want to, the great thing is as soon as you remove the heat source, it will stop doing whatever it's doing. So I can see the embossing powder has melted. Yeah, I think the embossing powder. Now the only thing here is, remember, embossing powder will cool down a lot slower than the fusible film. But I think we can say that is a success. Let's put the black behind again. Yeah, that's really interesting. And you've got these fabulous colours. And also the other side, I don't know if you can see that, but look at the colour of that. And do you know, it's really distracting when you can hear a dog snoring by your feet. Obviously I've bored him. But look at that. Yeah, I really like that. Great idea, Diane. Excellent. We like things like that. So, conclusions. Fusible film, amazing stuff. Hang on, I need to do that. So yeah, fusible film, amazing stuff. There is so much you can do with it. Yeah, just ironing it to create little bits that you can die cut. But then when you start layering it, and you can make your little Christmas decorations. So Sue, Samantha, I need to know, was that what you wanted? Obviously yours was a lot better because we took our time on it. You know, encapsulating things like the wire so you can create leaves and feathers, and using all your scraps to create something special. You know, creating scenes within it just by encapsulating, combining encapsulations with stamps as well. There's our little Christmas tree branch. There is just so much we can do with this. You know, and any of your stamps, as long as they were rubber or photopolymer, but really you're sort of wanting the big bold designs like these ones so that you've got space for the fusible film to sort of shine. If you go too busy with the stamp, like I did some words there just to make sure my iron was hot, you kind of there's too much ink, you're losing that impact of the fusible film. So I hope that's whet your appetite for fusible film, and we will be back next Wednesday, fingers crossed. Busy old week again next week because I'm at Highlight on Tuesday, and then yes, so and I've got my mum's care home Christmas fair on Saturday. So yeah, busy old week again, but in the meantime, dig out your fusible film if you haven't got it. If not, get hold of some because it is fabulous. And there's just, you know, the pool camera, the overhead camera was struggling with so much sparkle, you know, but it's just beautiful. So thanks a lot. Sorry about last night, and I will catch you next week. Bye-bye.